Hello, good morning. My name is Robin Lockhart, and I'm a senior associate with a multinational design firm in Miami. So I'd like to come here today as a colleague and share what I do on a daily basis with SketchUp with regards to Piranesi, and just give you a bit of a teaser with some three-dimensional models that we print with a Z-Corp machine and a few quick Maxwell images without stealing Mr. Pack's thunder. So my opening statement, there's an old saying that imitation is the most sincere form of plagiarism, right? So I'm here to share with you what I do with the very sincere hopes that you take the ball and run with it yourself. So I'd like to open up the floor at any point in time for questions. We are all colleagues here, and I like to make it very informal and fun. So quickly, I like to go through these 3D models. This is a relatively new thing that we bought 6 months ago, this big fancy machine that will print SketchUp models. 600 DPI, full color, in basically a plaster of Paris powder. The machine goes across, just like on the movies, it kind of builds up striations and prints colored glue instead of ink from an inkjet printer. So these are some of our real-world jobs. This is part of a $1 billion job that we just finished in Oman. This happens to be a heritage village on the side of a mountain, but it's the world's biggest botanic gardens. And one of the reasons why I want to show you these models is that the client's perception of our ability to carry the job through when we present these models is just worth its weight in gold. They've seen pictures, they've seen movies, but when you present a real model that a layman can see and feel and look around and see the shadows, it really takes things to another level. This is a LEED Platinum triplex. This, of course, is Lady Liberty. And I also took this model directly from the Google warehouse online. I ran it through the verification program, and it printed it up perfect. It was just amazing. So that model is approaching 2 feet tall. It's amazing. A little bit of a close-up. The detail is just unbelievable. And the 600 DPI full color makes a really, really nice quality model. My firm does a lot of master planning. This happens to be downtown Beirut, and this is they're always in need of reconstruction for some reason. And so this is just a quick proposal. But when the client saw this, I mean, there's a lot of client confidence that's built because of these models. This was a really quick workstation for our new studios. And we had all the little pieces that moved around, the little shells and people and other things. And we had a lot of fun making this model. It only took like 3 or 4 hours at the most to make the model itself. But the benefit that we got from it is that we could really see and evolve and press our designs forward. Okay, so the main focus I want to share today is Piranesi. And I'll just quickly show you an image here. Piranesi is a way to take your SketchUp models and paint them in a manner that you don't have to do any masking or any lassos or stuff like that in Photoshop. It knows all your materials, it knows all your surfaces and planes and shadows, so that when you go to put on clip art or textures or whatever, it saves you a considerable amount of time. The results that you do get are pretty spectacular. And one of the reasons why I like this program is I consider it an art medium. So every artist will get a different result using the same tools. So it's a relatively affordable program with a low learning curve, but the benefit that you do get from it is quite exceptional. So what I'm going to do is just quickly run through some of the images that I brought, and I'll just give a real quick description. And of course, please help me out with any kind of questions. Stop me at any point in time. This job was the first commercial painting that I ever did from the 8th month of '06, so not that long ago. Let's just under 2 years ago. This was for a private residence in Turks and Caicos, and didn't really know what I was doing. So with a few quick buttons and some clip art, managed to pull off a pretty reasonable picture. This is a relatively recent run in Turks and Caicos again. One of the reasons why I like this program is that with SketchUp you can take and map on all your textures, your roof, your walls, your windows, whatever. Piranesi knows what those are. So when I go to paint something, I can just say, okay, please make all the roofs whatever texture. Please make all the windows this. Please shade the windows. It has a way to lock your brushes and materials to only stick to certain things at certain points in time. So if I were to come along and put these shadings on the window right here, it'll just hit the window and miss all the mullions, for example, because they are physical different entities in three-dimensional space. So you don't have to mask anything, so that's very handy. This is a very old picture. It's kind of a Remy McIntosh kind of look. This was a design I did for a little community rec center. The SketchUp, the design from nothing, SketchUp, and the painting was 1 day's worth of work. So pretty pretty nice quality for a little effort in. Here's another a multifamily kind of a community rec center thing. Piranesi's ability to paint in a way that looks like a real commercial artist rendering is unparalleled. You know, the quality that you get from this thing, its ability to do reflections and add entourage, people and trees. Okay, the question was, do you paint the model or do you paint the view? You lay up the view in SketchUp, so it's only once. You export it as an ePix, which comes with SketchUp. It's already there as one of the lists. Then you'd paint that view in Piranesi. So you only get one. That is just hysterical. Look at that. You only get one shot at it. So what I'll do is when I paint a series of pictures, I'll have 3 or 4 views, an aerial, a front, a side, and just flip between each view and paint them as I go. Question?
Does SketchUp output STL files from the C code?
Okay, the question was, does SketchUp export STL? The answer is yes. However, I've used 3D Studio Out with better results because the 3D Studio Out gives you better mapping. The 3D printer machine has a verification program called Z-Edit, and you can open it up and verify all the shells, add all your textures, change colors, and fix any gaps and openings and things that the export process kind of ruined. So, so it had excellent results coming from SketchUp to the 3D plotter. There's a question here?
How long does it take to check the integrity of the model?
Okay, the question was, how long does it take to check the integrity of the model? The answer to that would be less than 5 minutes. It has a self-executing program that says, do you want to fix the model? And it will patch up 99% of the problems. You would go in and it will tell you where the problems are. You would just go in and fix the remainder. So it's a very efficient way to do it. Question here?
How long does it take to print most of the grander, bigger models?
Okay, so the question, back to the 3D printer, how long does it take to print the models? The print bay is 10 by 14 by 8 tall. The average model that I would print any one of those would have took about 3 hours. That little house took about 3 hours. Statue of Liberty might have took about 6 hours to print that. So I mean, it's very quick. I'd send it to run at the end of the day, come back in the morning, blow the powder off, and put this hardener on it, and you're good to go. So it's quite quick. A question here?
Do you need to pay close attention in SketchUp and naming your group and other components so that Piranesi will recognize it?
Okay, the question was, when you're mapping things in SketchUp, do you have to be very careful with keeping them all separate, roofs, wall textures, windows, and things? The answer to that is yes. And the reason is that one of the best things about Piranesi is its ability to use locks. And lock will lock you onto an orientation on a surface. It will lock you into a plane. It will lock you into a color. So the more finite you are with your materials, the more you can capitalize on that later with Piranesi. So the answer to that is absolutely yes. The better SketchUp models you do have, it has great benefit all the time, regardless. So, all right, I think we're back here. Piranesi, Google Basecamp. Piranesi, okay, very good. Okay, so I think I made it to about here. All right, this particular image, I had bought a book by Bonnie Rosquez, Mastering Piranesi, a few years ago. I did this pretend building in SketchUp just for the explicit purpose of learning SketchUp. And over time, with a lot of people's input, I kind of figured out that because Piranesi is an art medium, another pair of eyes looking at your artwork is going to make a huge difference. So I learned over time that things in the foreground, by just making them darker, appear closer. Stuff in the distance is lighter. So in Piranesi, this was a standard SketchUp model, nothing special about it at all. But when you add entourage and the depth of field and cool skies and all this other stuff, it takes the inherent qualities of SketchUp are fantastic. So Piranesi can capitalize on that and take you to another destination in your presentations. So this was just an example of what a cool picture you can get with this. This might take 2 or 3 hours to paint this picture. I had mentioned in a previous seminar that I do commercial art, you know, for real, for profit. The average painting like this would be between $4,000 and $6,000. It would take you a day to model and maybe an evening to paint. So there has been occasions where I could make a month or 2 months salary on a weekend. So I'm saying that as a financially viable product, Piranesi fills an incredible gap in the commercial art world. And I say again, I have no affiliation with Piranesi, I'm not here to flog the product. I use the product, and I believe in it with passion. So that's what I'm trying to share with you today. Now, it doesn't have to be 3D. This is a two-dimensional AutoCAD picture. As long as all your little fields and all your little areas touch, Piranesi can fill them all in. So forget about going into Photoshop and masking all this stuff out. Piranesi just goes bam, 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 bam. It'll shade, it'll add trees, do all those amazing things. Very, very quickly and very well. Okay, here's a relatively nice picture. And one thing that's cool about this image is that this ocean and the whole site was actually from Google Earth. So when I did the project, this was a weekend project. I did 3 renderings and the entire design pulling out of thin air in a weekend. Right? So there was 3 paintings in this series. One that I might have showed. BS the entire site, all the buildings as a proposal for a charitable organization called Shake a Leg. Very cool organization. It helps paraplegics and war veterans learn how to sail for free. Underprivileged kids and stuff. Fantastic organization. So this was just a proposed site, and it was a lot of fun because I actually met with the president of the corporation, who was in a wheelchair. He described to us what he needed. So automatically SketchUp was the way to go. So we masked all the buildings, emailed them a quick idea, then I went along and painted everything. So I think at the end I'll show you that picture again. Oh, here it is right here. Here's one of the better shots. On my work, this little seagull, okay, his name is Gus. He ends up on almost every painting that I ever do. And one of the cool things about Piranesi is you can either buy, make, or the program comes with extensive clip art libraries, which they call cutouts, or they could also be called entourage. It's an exceptional program because unlike other programs, it gives you tons and tons of things to work with right out of the box. So you can make your own. I make my own libraries quite often just from JPEG images or a scan from a magazine or something. Clip away the stuff in the back, erase it so it's transparent. And when you go into Piranesi, it just comes in as its own entity, complete with shadows and everything. It's an amazing program. Just try and find some of the other series here. This one's kind of interesting because it has kind of a burlap canvas kind of look to it. Now I painted it in such a way to try and make it look like a normal watercolor. Okay, there's a question here.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the different techniques. Is that a filter that you're applying after you put colors on, or are you painting in a watercolor style when you're applying it?
Okay, the question was, as I paint, is it a style, a push of a button, for example, or am I influencing what happens? And the answer is it's a little of both. What happens in Piranesi is you can apply everything at the same time. You can have grains and filters and brushes and fills and all these amazing things in different proportions or quantities. In this case, when I painted this picture, I had a grain turned on. This canvas background grain was turned on, so everything that I put in had the grain on it. It wasn't just a final Photoshop type filter. Everything was built in with the grain on it. And so this painting, I tried to make it look like a real watercolor in that it was flat in a manner of speaking. The other ones were a bit more dramatic, lots more depth. This one looks a bit more traditional. And even something as simple as putting on the trees with a transparent fade so that they're darker at the bottom and fade out to the top, it gives you a bit more of a realistic look to trick the eye to looking like it's a real hand, traditional method of painting. Let's see here. I think these might be in a series of 3. This was a huge development that my firm did in a place called Punta Mar, which is in Panama, I believe. We did all the buildings in SketchUp as a team. All the buildings are complete inside and out with all their rooms and textures, everything for all the different presentations that we used. These were just some of the final renderings. Let me just see. Try and get a bigger shot here. There was one more of it. Let's just see. Okay, this one's quite cool. This is an aerial shot. This little piece in the middle I had illustrated before in kind of that gray, grainy, Remy McIntosh kind of taupe look. Same building with colors. Piranesi's ability to mask and selectively add things or subtract things based on what they are is how it capitalizes on SketchUp. In SketchUp, I would have had the terrain and the grass and the water or whatever with a placeholder color. Then in Piranesi, I can embellish that color, put a new texture on it, make it transparent, make it reflective. You can see very subtly here there's some reflection of the buildings inside. And when you restore, what happens is that you create a very vibrant picture, burn it in with re-render, it's called, and then fill the entire picture over with white. Then you selectively with a brush, a restore brush, restore only certain parts. So the site on this particular instance looked like a big kind of a kidney-shaped site, kind of a figure-of-8 site. So in the background, there was just nothing. So I just restored certain parts so that it looked like a real painting. But in reality, there's all kinds of monkey business back here that had no business being on the picture. I just knew that as I was painting, and I just simply neglected to restore those back. So there again, it helps because you don't have to do everything perfectly. You can embellish as you go and selectively restore things. This was relatively recent, just a quick one-day image. This is what I painted yesterday for the Piranesi seminar. But here again, you can take a SketchUp model. This is an example of one scene only, right? And it looks fairly reasonable. Add on transparencies, and this water, the waterfall feature was just me thickening the line with certain gradients on the edges of this cascading pool, just with white. So I could take what was there and kind of embellish it more and more and more. So the capabilities of this program are stunning. And I like to reiterate that everyone is an artist, so you're going to get different results. Even though you're using the same tools, it's not a filter, it's not a push of a button. Everybody's going to get a different result, and that's part of the fun because it is an art medium. There's a question here, sir?
How do you get your entourage to match the view that you're
Oh, that's fantastic. The question was, how do you get your entourage, your clip art, to match the view? And the answer is you don't have to. Piranesi is a three-dimensional program, so it knows what's close, what's far. When you place a picture in the background, a tree is small, but it rubber bands gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you pull it towards the camera.
It's also getting foreshortened.
It is. Like when I place this tree with the shadow, I just hit a button to say, please give me the shadows. So you don't have to do anything. The shadows come down. When I put this tree here, it's exactly the same tree as when I place it over here with a second click of a button. It makes it smaller by itself. It is really a stunning program. That's just one thing that it does. It does thousands of things. So I guess I'd like to stress it's not in competition with Photoshop. Okay, it's a totally different animal. It's a question here.
Could you do a thing where you would like have one sun angle for your image in the Piranesi and do another sun angle and import that image from all from the same view, but then reapply all the Piranesi art to it and make the animation of, say, like the sun moving throughout the day as a Piranesi?
Okay, the question was, can I make a movie out of my Piranesi images? Maybe have the suns come across? The answer is no. These are single images. Just like in the old days when you paint a watercolor picture, you get a picture. This happens to be an interior of a bank and a flat AutoCAD drawing. Okay, no embellishments, no nothing. Okay, so I'm back where I started. I'll just go back to something cool here. There it is. This is one of my favorite ones. This is quite recent. This was just from the other day. Okay, so questions, please. Right there in the middle.
Yeah, you said it wasn't like a filter like Photoshop.
Right.
But, I mean, in terms of like production, will it remember your rendering styles so you can quickly kind of regenerate
Right.
the same style
Oh.
in different rendering?
Okay, so the question was, does it remember your filters and styles and things if you want to use them again? And the answer is absolutely. You make your own libraries, and in Piranesi 5, which is the current version, it will actually remember everyone for you automatically. So you can save them by job, which I do on occasions. That I'll print this series, this Shake a Leg series, and I have a whole library of everything there. And it just pulls it up, your own libraries, just on a Windows directory, and you just use that one or flip to this one or that one. The interface is incredibly intuitive, so the answer is yes. I'm going to have to quickly close, but another question, please.
Will it work on Macs?
I believe so. I don't know. I'm a PC, and I believe it will, yeah. Okay, the question was, will Piranesi work on Mac? And I believe the answer is yes. Okay, any more questions before I turn over the floor to my next comrade? Go ahead.
Oh, I just forgot.
All right. There's one way in the back in the center. There, sir. Okay, the question was, do I use a mouse or a tablet? I'm left-handed, so I have a really large, full-size Wacom pressure-sensitive tablet with a stylus. And I have it set up so that the incremental distance on the tablet is the same as the distance on the screen. So if I pull along a line that's 6 inches, it comes out 6 inches on the screen. And one thing I like to add as well, Piranesi is real-world scale. You know, if a person is 6'6", you put it on there in 6'6". If the tree is 27 feet tall, it comes in 27 feet. So as it enlarges and foreshortens on the view, it still maintains that ratio. It's incredible. There's a question way in the back on the right-hand side. Yes, one, I'm a member of ASAI, so you can look up the name Robin Lockhart on ASAI. And also, the Piranesi Corporation has a fantastic website. So I routinely post on Piranesi, and that's informatics.co.uk, right? Okay. Anyway, so you can Google in Piranesi. So on the blogs, the user blogs, you can call up people, names, and see what they've posted, or just go through the general posts. And there is a lot of exceptional artists that post their work there. So for me, it's just a privilege to be here and share. So with that, I'd like to close and say thank you very much for your time. And my opening statement. So my opening statement and my closing are the same. Please take these ideas, incorporate them into your own daily routine, and bash on in your own direction. So thank you very much for your time.
I'm going to open up model. I'm just going to show you how easy it is. I'm using a laptop, so I don't have much power. The rendering is pretty much uses your CPU, and on a laptop you don't really have much legs in this one. But I'm going to show you a scene, a normal scene within SketchUp. I'm going to just pan out so you can see basic setup, whatnot. That big geodesic ball, that's what I'm going to use as an Omni, but there's many ways of doing an Omni light. Podium supports Omnis, and it's and LEMs, and it's got an ambient occlusion and GI. So what we're going to do now is put a scene. I'm going to render this for you. Podium, as you can see, hit your plugins, Podium, show. That's the Podium, and as you can see, it all matches up with SketchUp. Pretty much what Podium is an extension of SketchUp, really. You'll see you got drop boxes, you got different presets. Just going to go for the default one over here. And you got different sizes that you can render. I'm going to go viewport resolution. That's exactly what you see is what you get. And what happens is you've got settings over here. You can set the quality for high quality or speed, smooth or jaggy. So obviously the higher the setting, the slower the render is going to be. It's like everything else. But for the sake of a rendering over here, I'm just going to go for the basic bottom settings and hit render. And as you can see, it processes the geometry, and it'll then start ray tracing. And I don't think you'll find anything out there that's going to be as fast as this for an image this size it's about to render. And bam, environments, meshes, off we go. We're rendering right now. And you see the percentage. You can check your image as it renders. It should be almost done, and we've finished image, 34 seconds. We can open many other, I've got so many things to show you guys yet, but what I'm going to do is, it's a very quick thing. It's hard to explain a rendering. You can't view a rendering. It's going to take a long time. So what I've done is I've put together a little video, and it's going to play. That's pretty much what it is. This is Zem. He's a user. He's a Podium user. There's an image from model to rendered. This is just a photo morph that I've taken over here. It's not an actual rendering progress. Again, let's just show you the power of an app that's very quick. Clay modeling. This is a massive model, and you'll see how it does clay modeling too.
Is there a version for the Mac?
Soon. Now you've noticed those are clip maps. Those are like entourage, pretty much, that disappears as you render, because just the image stays. It's an alpha image, really. It has different styles. This is a line overlay on an image, so it gives a, well, they call it the Zem look. It's almost a style. And you can actually overlay your render in Photoshop with a viewport resolution that you export with your render. Once you overlay them, you get that effect. This is how it traces metals and whatnot, and reflected surfaces. An actual project. This is photo merge. Take a render and you actually merge it with a photo. Now this gets the render is done in Podium, and then it's pretty much put together in Photoshop afterwards. We just overlay the images. This is Beeble. This is Beeble's bathroom. He's one of the great renderers out there on every platform. And another project. This is an interesting one. It took 7 hours from build to render. And it's going to go, show you can see the clip maps as they disappear, because putting in real trees is going to be too many polys in SketchUp, so you use clip maps and you see how they can actually integrate. This one's going to go today, and then we're going to change over tonight. Yes, yes, absolutely. Tadoando. The thing is, yeah, I'm going to show you the bump mapping on the walls. If you see the concrete on the wall, the bump mapping. This is a gaming project of mine. I threw that one in. It's 2 images. But show you what you can actually do. You can actually do toon textures too. That actually renders. All modeled in SketchUp. You have to have a sponsor. I mean, everyone's got one. Landscape architecture is possible in SketchUp. And finally, the clip maps, to show you what a good clip map can actually do. At the end of the day, rendering is all about the model. If it's a bad model, it's going to be a bad render. Choosing the right textures, very important. You know, you have to choose the right textures. And then lighting. I mean, once you get the 3 of those together, you can't go wrong with a render. So, pretty much what Podium is the easiest solution right now for rendering, and anyone can render. It's pressing a button, really. The learning curve is probably the smallest of all the renderers out there. Play with it. Within an hour, you're rendering. And then again, they got a wonderful forum. You go in there, ask any question, you'll find a solution. Or presets, there's materials. And for the price of the product, $179, I think you're getting a real rendering solution. Yes, sir.
For this first test image that took 34 seconds
Mm-hmm.
to render with the sliders all the way to the left,
Yes.
do you have any sense for how long it would take if the sliders were all the way to the left?
All the way to the right will take 17 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah, did it. I did the test. I was going to do it the other way first. I didn't have time. Oh, okay. Why Podium works well is that you're working with your SketchUp model as if you're working with SketchUp. So let's take, for instance, I'm just going to open any random model right now. Okay. Let's take a model, IKEA light balls. Like you will work with in SketchUp, everything is going to be based on your surface, for instance. Like if you have a look there, I've just clicked on that surface and your reflection just popped up to halfway. And you can change your reflection to 0 or to a mirror pretty much on just a slider. As you can do with light. Let me just hide that. If you see the little square there, that's actually an omni light. And see the value is very small. I could set it to very high. But if I explode the group and I put a light value on it, becomes an LEM. It becomes a light emitting material then, which is like a neon or whatnot. But if I group it, it becomes, well, I suppose it's an invisible light. Just gives you the light. It won't have a hotspot. Yet it'll throw shadows and whatnot. It's pretty simple. Let me just unhide there. And pretty much what, let me just set that up. So pretty much what it does is it actually works as if you're working in SketchUp. You all know the interface of SketchUp, so we're not going to go and give you a whole new interface to learn. You know, you already know SketchUp, so why not just render? We're just going to add you another button that says render, couple of sliders. It's simple. Any other questions? Yes?
Is there any perspective, like having it so that whenever you're making the LEMs and things like that, you have a preview or some idea of how much that's going to cast out? I saw another.
You're talking about light up.
Yeah, I saw
Yes.
the light up that does that. I'm just wondering if there's. Because I've used this before and had issues trying to figure out how much light that's going to emit that we can run test render after test
Okay.
render.
Well, I mean, you get the feel of it. First of all, you know, when you're in the beginning, you are going to, and you, depending on the size of your model, you know, the bigger the model, you know, you're going to have more intensive lighting. The smaller the model, and you can actually scale your model up and down to fit your lights, or your lights to fit your model. I want ray tracing. I'm just doing a quick night scene over there, and as you can see, as it renders, I can check it. You can also render a small preview, and it'll show you what you're looking at. You know, the very small size, it's instant. So.
Save your rendered lights in a library that is extracted?
Yes, you can. You can actually save it as a component. You put your light value onto it and you save it as a component to bring it back in. It will have those attributes on it already. Yes, and we've actually got, if you, well, you know, once you're with Podium, we've got an extensive light library. You can actually download the lighting. It's actual physical light with the value of light to it already. So.
Shadows being cast by the sun, does it understand the intensity of the sun?
Again, it uses the SketchUp sun. It uses the SketchUp sun shadows, and the intensity.
Most of the sliders can't.
No, you can't do it to the sun. No, you can't do intensity on the sun. The sun is the sun, you know. But you can enhance it by throwing an omni behind it, you know, in the view that you want to. You know, if you want to cast more light inside in a render. Any other questions?
Some of those line drawings that you had in SketchUp didn't seem to have any.
I did that for effect. No, they all got textures. I just went to the lines, so just look.
You apply the textures in SketchUp and then.
Yes, all the textures are applied in SketchUp. Everything is done in SketchUp. I just looked cool. Any other questions? Yes. Not yet. On the next version, apparently there will be an animation, but you can actually do it if you set up your cameras and you do 12 renders and. No, but we can't do that right now. No. Yes. Okay, bump mapping. Okay, okay. How bump mapping works is you get two images, your bump image and your normal diffuse map, and you put them in the same folder. The one's got the normal JPEG name, and the other one's got bottom/bump and a bump map. And then what you do in your model, when you pull up your materials, you'll see the material name. See it over there? Bump, and it's got a value of 1. It's got a value of bump 1, and that's going to give you a bump effect. You don't even have to have a bump map. You can take any texture, just add a bump value, and it will give you. It'll turn that image, that texture, into a bump map. That's it. Pardon?
Is that done based on the SketchUp map that you have? Basically, it's going to just import the SketchUp map and add bump value.
Yes. Yeah, don't have to have a special. I mean, you can if you want to do specular, because this can do specular maps too. So if you want to have a special map that's going to have the floorboards perfectly cast, then you're going to use a bump. But if you want just the bumped image looking, you can just add a value of bump to that image and turn anything into a bump map. We good? Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Hello everyone, my name is Jim Pack and I am a 3D data specialist with the Google SketchUp team in Boulder. And what I wanted to talk about today was some of the more higher end renderers like Maxwell and a few others. But first and foremost, I'm going to be frank with you guys. I am not a rendering expert. Surprise. Actually, what I wanted to share was actually my experiences as a non-expert in terms of creating photorealistic renderings. When I first started learning 3D modeling in college, I was always having a hard time like trying to model and like and design at the same time. I was trying to model simple designs and like have more harder time like actually modeling in that sense. So along came SketchUp, and lo and behold, I could model. And like with that, I was always a little bit unsatisfied with like the non-photorealistic look of SketchUp, as I was seeing a lot of the other renderings that were coming out with that were actually out on the internet, and I was blown away by how realistic like these renderings were looking. And me being a very passionate architecture student, I wanted to actually try to recreate some of that abilities with my SketchUp models. So what I ended up doing was I got a lot of my models, and then I actually exported it into like other 3D modeling programs like 3ds Max and like FormZ, and try to render it then. But even at that point, I still felt like they needed to actually have a course and like rendering theory, like material theory and like lighting theory and like Fung and Trong. I have no idea what those are, and like I was still a bit frustrated. But around that time, I saw a study done in 2006 by CG Architects that actually went out and surveyed all the different 3D modeling programs that were happening out there, like what firms are using, seeing what was happening. And, you know, to my surprise, there was a third modeling software called Maxwell Render after your normal V-Ray and Mental Ray, like for 3ds Max. And me being a SketchUp user, I was thinking if I might be able to use it in that way. But from that, like, I also want to mention that SketchUp was third most used program during 2006 as well too. And FYI, they're going to be coming out with a new study later on this year, based on my understanding. So it'll be interesting to see how it ranks in that sense. So yeah, I went out. I did some research. I tried to see what was happening with why it was so good and why it was so popular. And like, based on what I saw, I was like blown away. And their motto was as easy as taking a photograph. And you guys will probably see me around like taking pictures everywhere. So I do like taking lots of pictures. And so I wanted to see how easy it could be, since everything else seemed to be so hard. So these were like I did acquire the software itself, and like they didn't have a SketchUp plugin during that time, so it was only for 3ds Max. So I mean, I didn't really know how to use 3ds Max, but just in the sense of purposes of getting the software to 3ds Max so I could render it, I took it out there. And in the initial release, it was still in its beta form, so there was still a lot of bugs and issues with like material linking and everything. But even then, with my lack of knowledge, like as a newbie, these were some of the images I was able to do. And I guess one of the greatest things that I've been finding out with their software is that they have a huge library online of free materials, things that I don't necessarily know how to do, but someone else has done already, that is free to go and just download and get awesome quality from it. And like a lot of these models were just a variety of like modeling programs. Like some of it was from like FormZ, that those line things were all just follow me tools from, not follow me, push-pull tools, like just messing around in SketchUp. And that was like a Blender model right over there. So with this ability, I pretty much took my capability to help out the CU team in the Solar Decathlon in 2007. And these were some of the initial renderings that I was doing for the team, like for like graphic designs and presentation purposes, and even we made business cards out of these as well too. These were another renderings, and the last two that you see are actual photographs of the finished model itself. So I like to think it came pretty close in terms of the final output. But they also, I mean, initially they had a lot of bugs and everything, but like I mentioned, they released a SketchUp version, and it actually worked really, really well. It went hand in hand with each other as it became more of a direct connection, like similar to Podium, where you would just export, like it uses all of SketchUp's sunlight, shadow attributes, and all of that, and renders that directly as well too. So these are just a few test renders, and a lot of these guys were just, some of it was using Maxwell materials from what they had, and other ones were just photo textures using like the one in the far right. That was a model I modeled for Google Earth, and using the same photo textures that I created in Photoshop, like it still retained everything with the effect of dynamic lighting conditions and all that as well. And these are actual two recent renderings that I've done for the purposes of this talk. And one of the attributes of Maxwell, I don't know if much other programs are capable of doing this, is that it's capable of doing multi-light, meaning that you could do actual interior lamps and everything, and it still be able to capture it in like a sunlight lighting setting as well. And then, from my understanding, there's not much other programs that does it. And as Sola was mentioning before, like it depends on how good your model is too, in terms of easier. Like this is a model that I downloaded off the 3D Warehouse in Google, and they did an awesome job creating tileable textures and like getting actual textures of like the trims and everything. And with that, I didn't even do anything in order to like add materials. I just downloaded, set it in, press render, and that's the thing, and that's the image that came out. And with this software, I mean, one of the things about this software is that it's pretty expensive. I mean, actually, let me just, I mean, I would say it's part of the pitfalls. Like, I wouldn't say Maxwell is for everybody, and it also takes a really long time as opposed to Podium, as it is an unbiased rendering engine. Like, by unbiased, I mean that it actually calculates realistic lighting conditions. Like, it even hidden situations where you normally wouldn't do it, and it actually renders all of that as well. So it's a lot of unnecessary rendering time, but the finished quality I think is pretty superb. Like, I haven't really seen much else to it, and like a lot of the like I said, the largest criticism is that it takes really, really long. Like, even though the quality is easy and it's pretty easy to use, but in terms of the positive traits, like as I mentioned, it's pretty easy to use, and there's like a lot of vast library of available materials online as well too. In terms of the renderings that I did, I mean, for the previous ones, you know, they actually took some of these. I mean, the first top left one was about 5 hours. The other one, like the one to the top left, the middle one right there, that took about like 2-3 hours. The final one, I just left it overnight for, I mean, it's a huge image. Like, I think it's about, I don't know, like 2200 by 3600 or something like that, just to get like a large quality. And I left it overnight for about 8 hours and came back the next day. So for me, I mean, as I'm not necessarily an architect with deadlines to meet or anything, like I actually just get a rendering done, I set it go, and then leave it to render, and I come back the next day to have what I need. And like I said, like if you are a large architecture firm with like a lot of money to burn, I mean, even though it takes a long time to render, one of the great aspects of Maxwell is that it's a multi-core capable, meaning that if you have a dual core or quad core, or maybe even the new 6 cores that are coming out, it actually uses every single one of those cores to process your image. And not only that, you could actually hook it up to a rendering farm to cut down on a lot of those rendering times. Like Stack Studios right here, they get commission from like big name architects like Zaha Hadid and like Richard Meyer to create their actual professional submission proposal rendering. So that's, I mean, this is professional high-end software, simply said. But as I mentioned beforehand, I am not one of those people. And what I've been actually experimenting more towards, like, I also want to make a brief mention of V-Ray as well too for SketchUp. It's a new release that they just came out with, and it's a lot more complex than Maxwell, but the thing that I'm absolutely in love with it is its rendering speeds. Like, these are qualities that I've been getting, and these are all about 5-minute, 10-minute renderings. Like the top one over there, that's about a 1600 by 2200, I think, and that one took about 10 minutes. And the rest ones, they're all, the one in the bottom right there took about less than 5. The top left, like I don't know, like 5 minutes. I mean, they're pretty within like easy. Just you could actually just sit there and wait for it to render, and you wouldn't feel like you're wasting your time or anything. And it becomes a little bit more crucial. Like it helps me as a person like using SketchUp because I do a lot of graphic design work as well too on the side. And when clients have been asking me about how to like create like a 3D look of like their logo or like things like that, and using SketchUp and V-Ray has been an awesome thing for me to just create it and just send it out. And yeah, I mean, with this brief mentioning, I mean, I also like created a handout for you guys in terms of like all the other options that you have available out there. And you know, I haven't had much experience with much other renderers other than these two, and then even what was that? Fried Render, which is similar to Maxwell as well too. But in that sense, like from what I've been reading within the SketchUp community and everything, you have tons of options available, and especially even with a free open source software, like notable mentions would probably be Crickettia and Indigo, which are similar to Maxwell and V-Ray, as you guys saw. And they may be a little bit harder to use, but I mean, when it's free and money is an issue, like, how can you be, I mean, what can be free, honestly? So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, like I said, explore, and I mean, you guys have the resources available to you. Just look online. I would encourage you guys to check out the Sketchucation forums as well too, as they have a lot of information. And that's where I got a lot of this information from as well. So, yeah, is there any questions? Sure. Yeah, I mean, with V-Ray is actually a lot more integrated with SketchUp. Like the Podium version, like it actually goes into SketchUp, and you're essentially pressing render, and it renders everything from your lighting conditions and like where you're located, your viewports is all in there. I mean, however, there's also a lot more options that you have the ability to change around. Like, I'm not sure, like, you know, a little bit more. I can't really mention off the top of my head, but like there's like 8 or 10 more options, like even like similar to the 3ds Max, and they actually have a lot of books regarding those things. But for me, not being a rendering expert, as I mentioned before, I actually get a lot of presets from the V-Ray website, and those presets are actually where I've been able to get these qualities and times from. So that's, I mean, I do a lot of presets. Yeah. Yes, sir. Right over there. The cost of V-Ray is $800. Mm-hmm.
What does biased and unbiased?
So, by unbiased, it means it tries to calculate like every lighting conditions from where the lighting would bounce off this wall to how this lit floor would be lit, and like all of that. So, in terms of from where you're looking and from where you're looking to where I'm standing, you wouldn't necessarily see what this needs to be, but by being unbiased, it tries to calculate all of that. So it actually takes a lot longer to generate and like calculate all that information as well, and it creates more noise, and it takes even longer to fix all that noise as well. Whereas unbiased is in situations like this where you wouldn't see what's going on, it will actually use shortcuts to just forget about that part, you know, just focus on the other areas and just pretty much render it in that way. And it definitely makes a big difference, but you also lose out on a lot of the realistic quality as well, too. Mm-hmm. You know, normally you are, like she was asking whether we could change the lighting conditions in Maxwell or SketchUp. Before, when I did it, like before the SketchUp plugin, it was through Maxwell, but it was pretty similar to SketchUp, as in you're putting the time of day, where your location base, and like your time of month and all of that. But with the new SketchUp model, you're actually with the SketchUp plugin, it actually gets all the information from SketchUp, and it actually directly imports it too. And actually, I forgot to mention too, I guess. With V-Ray, like you're actually capable of doing photorealistic animations as well too. So let's see if this is going to be working. So this is a quick rendering from SketchUp, and it's not. I mean, it's not intuitive. Like I said, it's a complex software. But if you're willing to learn the software, learn your resources, learn where it's learn how to do it. Like V-Ray is capable of doing these kinds of renderings.
How long would it take to produce something of that quality?
Something of this quality, I guess, I mean, if you can make sacrifices in terms of, like, not trying to do completely realistic, you'll go with a little bit more of a lower setting and a lower resolution, then I would say probably something like that would take somewhere about like 8 hours, like 10 hours or something overnight. And yeah, I mean, if you guys also want to see a demo of how Maxwell works, I guess I could do that for you as well. Yeah, I'm not going to actually render it out, considering, as I mentioned, Maxwell takes a long time to render. So, but I'll show you guys how easy the process is. Yeah, and this is a model that, I mean, it's a previous model that I showed from that earlier thing. And this is a model that I downloaded off the 3D warehouse. It's the Kaufman house, Michelle Kaufman designs. And let's see. In this way, so if I were to get my brush tool, get my materials, and it actually gives you a bunch of plug-in tools as well too. I would turn the lighting on, press Alt to get the material information, and over here it brings up a dialog box of Maxwell stuff. And you could even just set it right here as is, whether you want it to be plastic and like be reflective, or like have more of a metal look, or even you could even set it to be a light as well too, directly off of here. But let's say you're really in love with all the other materials they have available for free.
I just want to ask about Vue. Have you had any experience with Vue Extreme?
No, I have. I do not. But I've had friends that have used it, and they're telling me it's amazing. So I just thought it would be nice to just enter it, like mention it.
Anybody else here? Vue 6 Extreme. Have you used it?
A little.
You good?
Yeah. At NDSU, my students primarily are using PS Max, Atlantis, Maxwell Render. We're doing a little bit of Brazil, Pure and Easy, and some students have told me they need to evaluate Vue this next semester.
So yeah, I mean, I could get and going back to the material things, I could get to the materials. They're all in their program files, but you could even just create a shortcut to quickly access it. And if I were to just go into the materials, it will work. Yeah, and just for kicks, I'll just put it in here. And if you wanted to see where it would look like, just go to edit, and there's even a I guess it's kind of slow since it's running on battery power, or actually it should be good. And so I do recommend, if you were to use Maxwell, to have a powerful computer.
What is the cost of that software?
Of Maxwell, $999. Yes, sir.
This last semester, my thesis students were doing the production quality renders in Maxwell.
Mm-hmm.
We on two quad-core workstations,
Mm-hmm.
and within about an hour, 2 hours time.
An hour, within an hour or two? Exactly. So, like I said, if you have better, more powerful computers, they are easier to use. Like, this is kind of a sort of an impossibility trying to do this on a Pentium, well, single core Pentium from like 4 years ago. So I haven't really tried to do this a lot more. Not enough. But yeah, I'll just leave that be. We'll mess around with that. Here, I'll just actually restart that. Oh, there it is. That is the material settings. Let's go back to the Kaufman house. But after you get your materials, you apply it to your proper textures, and as long as they're the same textures, it'll maintain it throughout the rest of your models. And as far as as I mentioned before, all the lighting conditions, you would set it in SketchUp. So after you're done with all that, you're satisfied with your view, and hopefully SketchUp would load. There we go. And in that sense, what is all this? No. Tools, windows, shadows. Display shadows, noon. And then go to File. You're satisfied with this view. 3D model. Export it as... Okay. Alright, I think I actually have a bug here. It doesn't come up with the Maxwell exporting option over here, which normally you should be able to do. But in that sense, you just export it and you just give it an option about how large and how long you want it to render it for, and it will render it on its own. And generally, for me at least, like I just render it, make sure everything's right. Like I'll do like quick 5-minute tests of really small imagery and just set it to render it, see if it's good, and then set it to large and just let the computer do its thing. So yeah, I mean, are there any more questions? Yes, sir. Excuse me? You know, I've heard about it. Like, I've been doing some research, but like, I haven't seen much on it yet. It seems like they're still in like very beta phase and still trying to figure out like, and still trying to have an actual release out there. So. No, today or yesterday? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sure. Really? Okay. All right. Sure. I mean, that's good to know. Yes, sir.
The iRender software is fairly inexpensive. They got the beta test on a new version of it. It's NXT.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been using it, and it does a phenomenal job. The render time is not bad. I've had some pretty complicated renders.
Mm-hmm.
You can do reflectivity on the surfaces. You can texture the surfaces. You've got studio lighting, interior lighting. There's a multitude of things you can do, and they do have the beta test version is free right now. So
Okay.
iRender, the NXT, you can Google it up and you can download it for free.
Sure. Definitely. I mean, yeah. As I mentioned, like even with the handout that I gave to you guys have a myriad of options available, and a lot of it's free too. So like, all it does is just take some time to do a little bit of research, and see what's available out there, and you will see there's tons and tons of great, fantastic options available. So, yeah. I think that's about it. I mean, if there's no further questions, I think we're good. Thank you.